Right, so welcome everyone. As people are arriving, welcome. You've arrived at the EdTech Showcase Part 1. It's really good to see people here. We'll give you a minute or two as people arrive before we actually get going. Right, so kia ora tātou, nō mai haere mai, ko Dave Moskowitz tēnei. Hello everyone and welcome to the EdTech Showcase 2020 Part 1. I'm Dave Moskowitz, and people are still arriving, so we won't get straight into things straight away. But while we're waiting, I'd like to tell you about EdTechNZ. Our purpose at EdTechNZ is to empower learning with technology that embodies our unique Aotearoa New Zealand identity. EdTechNZ is part of the NZ Tech Alliance, and our members comprise companies large and small from right across the sector and up and down the motu. If you want to play an active role in helping improve Aotearoa New Zealand's education technology, then do join us, and you can sign up at edtech.org.nz/join. So my co-host today is Helen Cooper, who works at Core Education. Why don't you introduce yourself, Helen?
Kia ora. Kia ora koutou, ko Helen Cooper tōku ingoa, he ka mahi ho ko Education, tātai ahara. No mai haere mai, it's great to see everybody this evening and really looking forward to the discussions. I've had a sneak preview at the clips, so a really exciting array of opportunities to look at and discuss. So looking forward to it. Thanks, Dave.
Awesome, thank you, Helen. So we're talking to 6 really exciting companies from the education technology sector in New Zealand today. So we'll be starting with Dave Cameron from LearnCoach, who have hundreds of thousands of secondary school students learning on their online platform. We'll also be talking to Carl Conliffe from Augmented Learning, who build out feature-rich learning management systems. Paul Spence and Renee from Creative Forest, who provide an ecosystem approach to cultivating innovation communities. Scott Granville from Chasing Time English. They produce the most amazing online educational TV series that helps students improve their English skills. Bernard Long from SkillsMe, who help you turn wannabe software developers into career coders with high-paying jobs. And Raphael Nolden from Amy.app, and they provide an AI math tutor that helps students improve their math skills. What a lineup. Each company has prepared a brief pitch video, which will show in tune, and that will be followed by about 5 minutes of Q&A. So I would ask you during each pitch, if you have questions from the companies, please go into the little the Q&A talk balloon down at the bottom of your screen and type in your question. And after the short pitch video, Helen will be feeding your questions to the presenters. So let's get started. First up is Dave Cameron. And Dave is the Chief Exec of LearnCoach. And I will just play his video now. Just give me 1 second.
Hi there, my name is Dave and I'm a founder of LearnCoach. And LearnCoach provides online schooling for secondary and tertiary students. And so my journey started as a high school teacher way back in the early 2010s. And this was just when YouTube was starting to blow up and other online solutions were still pretty new. And so it just blew my mind at the time when students could play a video from someone famous like Stephen Hawking, and that's how they learn science. And I just remember thinking that my students aren't going to need me. I can take them to a computer room, say they can click play, and my job's done. But boy was I wrong, because as many of you will remember from high school, you don't study because it's fun. You study because you really need to do well. And when I told my students that there's this great interesting lesson, it's not going to be in the exam, but it's by Stephen Hawking, nobody cared. On the other hand, when I told my students that a lesson was definitely going to be in the exam, I had everybody's undivided attention. And so the reality for school students, I realized, is that as soon as they hit senior high school, it's their full-time job to do well in exams. Because if they don't get university entrance, their parents and teachers are going to be mad at them, or they'll think they're dumb. And so, unless Stephen Hawking wanted to make a video on exactly how to pass NCEA physics, it was virtually irrelevant to those students. And this is one of the crazy paradoxes to navigate, because students can access almost unlimited amazing information from the internet, like the stuff from Stephen Hawking. Yet, 97% of certified courses, like the ones that my high school students are doing full-time, are not available online. And it makes it extremely difficult for these students to do their job of needing to do well in exams. Because basically they have no access to help outside the classroom and no flexibility of when, where, and how they learn. So at LearnCoach, we're trying to move that government certified education online. So here's how it works for one of our high school students. This is Jamie. She goes on to LearnCoach and she picks her course. And she learns by watching video lessons and taking quizzes, practice questions, and mock tests. But the best part is that when Jamie's ready, she can just click a button, a whole lot of anti-cheating technology turns on, and she can take her real government-approved exam right then and there. And the results get logged on NZQA's database. And this has been amazing because students love the flexible model of learning. We now have more than 100,000 students every year register with us. So this is more than 70% of the entire NCA population. And this year, we've just allowed teachers to set their classes up on LearnCoach because it's really hard as a teacher juggling all these students in different places doing different things. And so in the last 2 months, we've had more than 2,000 teachers set up classes, which is covering about 74% of schools around New Zealand. And so this is how LearnCoach is bringing government-approved certification online and helping to support schools and make, hopefully, education available to everybody. Thanks.
So Dave, that's a really amazing story. So tell us, what's the next stage of development for LearnCoach? Where are you planning on taking the company next?
I think the really interesting thing is going deeper with a lot of our learners, because initially a lot of our thinking was how do we take what students are doing in New Zealand high school and share that with tertiary courses or other international courses. But actually our current users keep asking for more and more things. And so going deeper with those people, providing more support, providing stuff for cramming, for deep learning, for study bursts, for lessons inside of schools. It seems that there's so much nuanced learning that goes on within our students' lives that providing more of that in an online setting is the next step before we try and translate that model to other places.
Awesome. Over to you, Helen.
Kia ora, Dave. Truman's asked, what kind of support would you need when going overseas into the overseas market, and what benefits for the overseas students do you offer?
Well, I think there's two kind of benefits to overseas students. The first is that we can bring, if we're particularly looking into the Asia Pacific market, bring Western qualifications into Asia, which aren't usually provided onshore. So that's the kind of first thing. Firstly, exporting New Zealand education, but then ultimately we want to export lots of different kinds of education. But the second step is if we go somewhere like Australia, making sure that we don't just offer New Zealand high school courses there, which is pretty useless to most of those students, but making sure we can offer those certifications from local markets as well. And so that's a lot of the model that we're building and testing here to make sure that we can scale that much more quickly offshore, because we don't want to have to reinvent the business in every single new course we go into.
Cool. The questions are coming in thick and fast, so prepare yourself. How did you overcome your biggest and unexpected challenges?
Oh, biggest challenge by far was funding in the early days. Like that's the hardest part. So getting supported, like Dave Mosk was a huge and has continued to be a huge supporter since day one. And it's really hard to find people who take you seriously when you're in the early days. And I think that after you get momentum, generally a few more opportunities unlock themselves. But those early days when you're earning no money, revenue wise, or you're using up all your savings, those are the really hard parts trying to create a product.
And what do you charge per pupil?
We have a freemium model, so there's a bunch of free stuff, and then it's $2 per week for a student, and they have to sign up for a minimum of a year, so it's just over $100 is our lowest price thing, or between $400 and $1,000 per year, so about $30 to $50 a month for the assessment stuff.
And so what do you see your key points of difference with other competitors in New
Well, I
Zealand?
think there's two. Number one, making sure it's very certification specific. So rather than just general learning, of which is so much stuff, making sure that it's teaching a student what's going to be in their exam, how they're going to ask the questions, how to structure your answers to make sure you get high grades. So there's that part. And then actually setting the real qualifications itself. So whether it's a school teacher doing it with their students or someone coming to us directly. So actually literally getting real exams online whenever you want.
Cool. And how do you, what's your stats tell you in terms of dropout rates and ratios in the online formats compared to other statistics or other courses?
We have really high completion rates, but it's a little bit of a false positive. So they're a bit over 70%, but we're, excuse me, we're supplementary to schools. So students aren't only using our courses, they're learning it in school as well. And the government has basically said, you have to pass this course. So we've got a whole lot of external motivators from their parents, their school teachers, everybody, making them finish it. So as a supplementary course, given that we're built like that, students do almost all of our courses once they start them. That's really sticky.
Yeah, it's impressive. Are you thinking of providing learning for younger users, or you? And so, question is, it would be great for an autistic child who doesn't learn well in class. So, have you thought about that?
Yeah, actually, the first student I ever tutored was my younger brother who has autism. And this kind of came out of that in some ways. And so it was really, he just great, you know, now he's gone off and thrived post-school, but just absolutely battled. And so I think that's one of the barriers, is that the classroom works for some people, but it doesn't work for a lot of people. So being able to give people the power of learning outside the classroom as well, whether it's in their home or a more friendly environment, is a huge part. And in terms of going younger and offering more, it's one of our biggest barriers, is how we unlock being able to put more courses or get them live while still being certified. It's our big challenge at the moment.
And Annabelle Robertson from New Zealand Education has asked if you could provide a taster experience of New Zealand education, to students globally thinking of students thinking of coming to New Zealand.
Yeah, well, one of the
good question given today's announcement by the government.
Oh, I missed today's announcement. I'll have to look that up. But one of the good examples of offshore stuff for students coming to New Zealand is that we can deliver some, for example, preparatory courses before they come, so that high schools, for example, bring international students. Right now, knowing who they are or whether their English is good, so we can actually start delivering some of that NCA offshore to prepare the students, which gives them much less of a shock when they land in New Zealand, and also helps screen out people who would struggle when they arrive. So it's just another way to kind of bring it out of the classroom and spread it really cheaply around the world.
Cool, you definitely do want to check out Chris Hipkins' announcements this afternoon.
I will do that, thank you.
How are we going for time, Dave? Have we got time for more questions?
One more.
One more question. Okay, Leslie has said, is your online learning NCA focused only on, is it only NCA focused, or can it support international baccalaureate studies?
At the moment, no IB is on there. So we're doing some other like university stuff, but it's very specific to NCA, and we'll be launching IB at some point, but I'll have to get back to you on how soon that actually is. So, yeah.
Right. Well, thanks so much, Dave. We really appreciate your preparation that you did for your video and the time you spent with us today. And if any of you are interested, go to the Learn Coach website. Give some of the lessons a try for yourself. It's really a lot of fun. Dave appears in many of the videos, and he's a really entertaining teacher too. So highly recommend it. So thanks so much, Dave.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Cheers.
Cheers. Now, next up, we have Carl Conliffe from Augmented Learning. And so I will switch to his video just now. So just give me a moment. And here we are.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Carl Conliffe tuku ingoa. I'm one of the directors here at Augmented Learning Limited, and what our company does is we specialise in providing learning management systems for organisations, whether those organisations be educational institutes such as primary, secondary, tertiary, or whether they're simply organisations who are trying to provide learning opportunities for their staff to upskill or around some of their standard operating procedures. So I've only got 3 minutes. I'm going to jump straight in and show you around one of our biggest platforms, My Study Series, which currently serves 10,000 students in the secondary space across mathematics, physical education, health and science. So have a look, and if you have any questions, let me know. Cheers. I have very little time. 3 minutes is not long, so I'm going to jump straight in. As mentioned, we have access to all of these different learning areas on My Study Series. We'll just take a quick look at a lesson here for our students to see what they see. So they're presented with a list of lessons per standard, and they can jump straight in, and they have a video, they have a note-taking application, they have the opportunity to do an automated quiz, which is one of our biggest features of the platform. And students take this quiz. It's automated, it's self-grade, and the teacher is provided with some of the evidence results from that, and that can help guide the next step in the learning process. I'm just going to jump out of this. We have a classroom feature where students can engage with other people from their class. They can engage with the teacher. They have access to a wall that they can post things and questions and stuff like that. The teacher can run Zoom meetings out of this classroom space. Moving on to some reporting. Teachers can access reports based on the students that they have, and these reports can be used in terms of guiding the learning process and just checking the student understanding, so they can jump straight in. Let's look at some of these. So if they want to check how a student did in a quiz, then they can access this information in the starter and see what they got wrong, and that can help guide the learning process. We also have some custom gamification. One example of this here is our ranking system, which is based on New Zealand native trees. So the more experienced they are on the platform, the bigger the tree they get to. And we have support options. That these are all done custom, and what we often do is, depending on the needs of the organisation and their student needs, it depends on what we add on to the platform for them. So that's a little bit about what we do. Some of the key things is the learning and the lessons, the automated quizzing, the classroom space, ranking system, or the light gamification that helps build engagement and motivation. So any questions, yell out. I hope I've done this in under 3 minutes. I think we're close.
So thanks so much, Carl. That was a really great introduction. I think you, you've unmuted yourself, so that's good. So tell me,
unmuted. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, the learning management system market is pretty crowded. There are hundreds of them from all over the world. What were your main objects in putting together augmented learning, and how do you differentiate yourself from the other systems out there?
Originally, it was really just to get My Study Series off the ground, and what we found was, once we had that up and running and we had a lot of engagement from schools paying to access, that we were getting contacted by a lot of organisations who wanted to bring their learning online. And what differentiates us from others is much like Learn Coach and David there, is that I'm a trained teacher. I'm a teacher by trade. I've been teaching for 15 years now, and that gives a really unique approach to learning when you can understand things like learning outcomes, student needs, and stuff like that. So that's probably our biggest point of difference in being able to leverage that experience and support organisations, whether they be schools or businesses, to bring that learning online.
Cool. Over to you, Helen.
Thanks. Carl, do you have any gamification on the platform for tertiary students? And if so, how successful are you finding that?
We don't currently offer anything for tertiary, so all of our gamification is targeted towards secondary school students, and they are simple badges or notifications or a point system. We're currently working on students being able to take those points and exchange them for additional content, such as additional quizzes that they might be able to take, or flip cards that they can use to test and reinforce their understanding of certain concepts. So currently just for secondary school students. On My Study Series, that is.
And can you provide evidence that using your system improves learning outcomes?
We have a couple of case studies. So we've worked closely with Heretatonga College, and we've also worked with Orewa College, and we've talked through some of their um, learning area leaders to look at some of their data around student pass rates through NCA before and after using my study series. But probably the big thing for us is we're not so focused on student outcomes as such, but we're more a tool that supports the teacher in the classroom. We were born out of this flipped and blended approach for my study series, and that's all about having the students consume that data outside of the classroom, and then the teacher being able to repurpose that classroom time to have more authentic and meaningful learning opportunities. So we work really hard to support the teacher to use the platform well, and in turn, hopefully lift some of those achievement rates.
Kia ora. And Jacinda Penn has asked what kind of learning interactions are possible within the system?
Interactions, so we have the videos which are built by teachers. We subcontract our health science and maths lessons to really solid educators who provide the videos and the quizzing. We also have those classroom features which allow the teacher to engage with their students outside of the classroom, which was really handy during COVID and lockdown. So we opened up the platform and we gave it free access for 3 months, and those features have been really picked up and used well with students. When you ask a kid to consume some content outside of the classroom, they often don't have the support of their peers. So being able to provide that for them, they can jump on, speak to some of their peers and get support, and if they need to, jump on a call with their teacher at the same time. So in terms of engaging with that learning, so it's basically through the quizzes, through the video, and through some of the classroom features where they can talk with their peers and their teacher.
Cool. And so how, so are schools able to set their own content up with you? What's the relationship between schools and...
So they can't. So a school would purchase access, and that access would be either for a single class or a year level or an entire, their entire department. And then we split them into classes, and their teacher becomes a group leader, and they manage the classroom and set the content like that. So we have, if we release, so for example, if we release level 1 maths, then we will have 8 to 12 videos for every single mathematics achievement standard that's available. So we won't release anything. We won't say, okay, here's level 2 maths, but you've only got achievement standard 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. We push it all out, and that allows a teacher to pick and choose and set that work for the students that they have in their group.
And what are your plans for your next development? Are you expanding subject areas, or what's your next steps?
Yeah, we are really just trying to, we've talked internally about B2C, but at the moment we really need to stay focused on B2B and ensure that we have, all of our maths content is up, that all of our science content is up, and we're, maximising our reach to our schools and the organisations that we're working with. B2C would be nice, but there are some challenges there around scale and things like that. So at the moment, we've just kind of parked that, and we're looking at how we can expand learning areas, how we can provide better support to the teachers, particularly around that focus on a flipped and blended learning environment, and making sure best practice around the platform, that they're not just sitting there pushing play in the classroom for the students. So it's around resourcing that. So for example, if we have a lesson on biomechanics, we have the video for the student, but then maybe also bringing on some resourcing for the teacher so that they can go, okay, well, students have consumed this, now here's some lesson starters, to get away from that remembering and understanding and focusing more on evaluating and creating and analysing those higher order thinking skills that really bring about better learning and critical thinking with our students.
Hey, thanks so much for that, Carl. That's amazing. And again, I hope you can, people will be singing your praises far and wide as a result of all the hard work you put into this.
Thank you.
Cheers. So next up, we have a Creative Forest with Paul and Renee. And I will just get their video up for you right now.
Complexity and opportunity. In a world of complexity and opportunity, where do we find inspiration and direction when we're becoming increasingly overwhelmed by invasive, non-stop social messaging telling us how to think, how to look, and how to feel?
How do we encourage innovation and brave new thinking in our communities? How do we nurture our unique, diverse voices to sing a better world to thrive beyond tomorrow? Well, we can, with Creative Forest.
Hi, I'm Renee Mackey.
And I'm Paul Spence.
Welcome to Creative Forest. We provide an online platform and innovation methodology to help you discover, grow, and share your talents.
Creative Forest enables you to realise your communities, find your passions, engage with supporters, and build your skills and confidence.
Through Creative Forest Connect, or our live community engagement events, we help you to discover your talents, bring your project ideas to life, broker relationships, and connect the dots to make things happen.
At Creative Forest, we use an ecosystem approach to work with schools, civic groups, and businesses to help them build collaborative communities and knowledge networks.
For schools, Creative Forest offers a personalised learning methodology that sits alongside and complements STEAM curricula. For example, during the lockdown period, we connected students from rural schools to international mentors in the tech sector.
For civic communities, live Creative Forest events provide a truly engaging and unforgettable forest experience that helps to uncover skills, formulate ideas, optimise resources, and support communities to create clear project pathways.
And for business, Creative Forest works alongside organisations to build relationships with both internal and external stakeholder communities.
So what are we looking for right now? Firstly, a technical partner to scale our MVP. Second, a corporate partner to help us deliver Creative Forest to a wider audience.
Right. That's really lovely. Thanks very much, Paul and Renee, for working on that video. I'd just like to invite people in the audience to submit their questions into the Q&A box, the little talk balloon thingy down the bottom of your screen. So let's start. Paul and Renee, how are you distributing your product? How do you get into the schools, the businesses, the different organizations that you want to work with?
In terms of the digital product, at the moment, the strategy is through channel partners. So at the moment, being very early stage, we have just one channel partner and addressing New Zealand. So that's exposing us to a wider range of school situations than we could reach by ourselves.
And can you tell me a little bit about what a typical program would look like?
Well, basically the kids come in and it's about us building relationships with them and getting to know them. And then figuring out where their interests lie and how we can help them build an individual plan for a project that they might like to work on. So we work with kids in any sort of area because it's up to the kids what they want to focus on. So for example, at the moment we're working with a student who is interested in fashion photography. And it's our job to help her learn as much as possible about what is involved in that process. And then we work together to co-construct a project plan that she can work on. We've had musicians, coders, game developers, children's book illustrators, all sorts of kids doing different things. And then we kind of coach them through this process of working on their projects. And then they usually get to a point where they realize that they can also capitalize on the community that they're in. So they end up working cross school and working together on projects with their different skills. And we bring experts from around the world in to help them on those projects to give them some insight or give them some guidance. And they can also learn about building their professional networks. So usually when they come out the other side, they've got a whole lot of contacts on LinkedIn in different fields globally.
Kia ora, Renee and Paul. Cheryl Doig has asked, who is your target audience or age group, sorry?
Well, it's aimed for years 7 to 13, but optimally, what we found is intermediate to early high school age, because we don't have accreditations at present, maybe in the future, but for the younger high school kids and the intermediate kids, they're not so focused on qualifications as such, so works better.
And we find that often at the age group we're working with, they don't always have an idea of what they would like to focus on to study. And it's quite a scary decision for kids to have to commit to a study pathway, and often they don't know much about what they're committing to. So we kind of see ourselves as like a bit of a filter where they can try all sorts of different things. And at this point, it's not crucial if they go from one thing to the next, but it gives them a much better idea to try and figure out what they are interested in, so they can make better decisions when it comes to choosing study pathways. Hi, Cheryl.
One last question, really. What are your key measures, leading indicators of traction with your chosen target market? What are your indicators of success?
We usually have a different set at the moment. So it's things like when the students go to apply for jobs, and we've found that our students are getting jobs in school a lot easier because of the experience that they're gaining in Creative Forest and the contacts they're getting. So it's more those kind of things rather than how far their English skills or things like that have progressed. We're more focused on emotional intelligence and the soft skills.
That's great. Hey, thanks. We're going to have to stop there. Thank you so much, Paul and Renee. Really lovely presentation, and yeah, we wish you success in getting that out to your market. Now, next up, we have Scott Granville and Chasing Time English. Sorry, just coming up in a moment.
Chasing Time English is the home of exciting drama series created specifically for English language learners. Our series are designed alongside compelling and innovative teaching and learning materials by a team of English language professionals with global teaching experience.
We are a proud New Zealand-based company serving a global audience. Over the past 2.5 years, we have listened to what students and educators from around the world prioritise in their learning and teaching to create a unique communicative experience for the English language education marketplace.
Explore the wide range of classroom materials and activities for independent use at our Chasing Time English website. Trial a lesson with your students using an episode from our award-nominated Fortune series, and make the easy decision to use our series in your teaching. We're certain that your learners will love you for it.
We continue to be innovative with our product range to meet customer needs. With an ongoing shift to online and remote learning globally, we offer a range of user options with compatibility across all major learning management systems, as well as video licensing for regional marketplaces. Our series are targeted to meet learning outcomes for tertiary, secondary, and adult learners of English. We prepare our content simultaneously, resulting in dramatic narratives and purposeful teaching opportunities from beginning to end.
Trusted by organizations around the world, with users in over 100 countries, Chasing Time English offers you a one-stop solution to engage and motivate your learners.
Wow, Scott, I was just so impressed with the production values, the the scenery. I mean, I couldn't actually see the acting, but it looked like I could really tell what was going on without any voice. It looks like really top-notch quality. How do you compete in the global market against the sea of meh that's sort of being produced all over the world and very low cost?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having us on here, Dave. It's a really good question. I mean, basically, when we started out with Chasing Time English, we've got a really strong core team that comes across video production, but also across English language education. So we were really confident, even starting as a small business in New Zealand, that we had a product that is competitive on a global scale. So we've slowly built towards making product that we're really proud of. And as you see from that short video clip, our video production really stands up.
Kia ora.
Hi, Helen.
One of the first questions for you, Scott, isn't really a question, it's just a brilliant with an exclamation mark, which is very cool. The second question is, can you cater to multiple English levels within the same content?
That's a really good question, Helen. So what we've been working on is flexibility in the way that we produce our content. So with the Fortune series that you saw in the example there, we filmed that simultaneously across different levels. So what we'd take is some dialogue and adjust the English language within that to cater towards, say, a pre-intermediate level and then upper intermediate or advanced level. So the student still has the dramatic narrative and doesn't lose that focus. But from a teaching perspective, they can interchange the lessons that are provided with the video content to then best suit their classroom needs or their learner needs.
And how widespread is schools accessing your content?
When we rolled out the first series in early 2018, and we used that as a template to really judge how students would be motivated and how they could best use the content both online and in classroom environments. We're really looking at that kind of flexible and blended learning opportunity. So yeah, when we do look at that from a perspective of how students can use it, we're looking at a couple of things in that way of flexibility: is interactivity, but also how can a teacher or a student using it as self-directed study best get the best outcomes for their language learning journey.
Cool. So do you have students subscribing separately or schools? How's the model?
Yeah, so at the moment we have a blended, well, B2B and B2C model. We have a publishing partner in the United States that publishes our physical textbooks, and alongside that they get access to the video content. We also have several non-exclusive providers, both online education providers and also education video distributors. So we've used the sort of last 18 months to really feel out the market and see where we best fit into that landscape.
And Jacinda has asked, she says, I noticed you use Articulate 360, as does she. Have you come across some systems not being SCORM compliant?
That's a really interesting question, and it kind of comes back to the flexibility that we're trying to provide. We did find a couple of roadblocks using Articulate. So what we're really trying to do now is, with the customer base that we have in place, to say, how can we best service your needs? So we're very confident that with our video production content and also the teaching and learning materials, they are kind of at a really high standard. How can we best service that? So we have used Articulate, but we do have other ways to access and provide those materials.
Cool. And have you got any feedback from teachers who have used the materials?
Yeah, again, one of our main principal sort of driving forces in the last 18 months is to get feedback, both from teachers and learners, to see what's working, how do we engage, and how do we motivate. So the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. The one challenge that we're looking at, probably going back to one of your earlier questions, is with any sort of digital and video content, how can we best provide that, but at the same time maintain our protection around our IP and those kind of issues.
Excellent. And Dave, we've got time for one more.
One more.
One more. Where is this being picked up the best in terms of markets?
Our two biggest areas at the moment have been in Australia and North America. We are a small team and we are looking to expand into different territories, but at the same time, we're really trying to make sure that we don't grow too quickly and go beyond our current capabilities. So yeah, we have some really interesting conversations, particularly in Asia, which we're really hoping to broaden there, and also into some European territories have also shown some interest.
Hey, thanks so much for that, Scott. And I mean, I heard this sort of factoid the other day that New Zealand is the last film industry sort of left standing during COVID. And so I hope that really provides a big tailwind for you while the rest of the world is having so much trouble. You know, we've got a vibrant industry going on here, and you're leading the way. So thanks so much for your time today.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Cool. Now, next up is Bernard Long from SkillsMe. So let's watch his pitch, and then we'll get to ask him some questions. Don't forget to enter your questions into the Q&A box as this video plays.
45 million, that's the number of people who learn coding yearly, and 94% of them fail to make a career out of it. Most of them quit due to no clear goals on learning, support, guidance to develop their skills, and a lack of feedback that kills their last bit of motivation. However, these barriers won't last long. We are SkillsMe, a platform where coders can learn to code by solving real-world problems through building projects. In so many years, building projects to practice has been considered the most effective way to upskill, but it's also a struggle without proper support until now. Let me show you. Coders can now select a project from our catalog they like to work on. Once they select the project, coders can see descriptions, resources, and goals to help guide them to complete this project. By any chance that they are stuck, on-demand consultation from our chat system is available. Once finished, coders can upload their projects directly onto SkillsMe to get their projects validated by our judges in the form of ratings. With those support, upskilling with projects is no longer a struggle on SkillsMe. Through these, we motivate coders and make practical coding skills easier than ever before. The market for SkillsMe is enormous. By 2022, we believe over 60% of the 45 million people who are learning how to code are consistently looking to build new projects to practice, which gives SkillsMe a potential user base of 27 million globally. If we take a conservative assumption that only 5% of the user base will join SkillsMe, with 15% of the coders purchasing SkillsMe Uni, this will result in a yearly revenue of $7 million. Remember, this market is also growing at 10% yearly. We wouldn't have a platform without SkillsMe judges. They are experienced coders who provide support for SkillsMe users. We expect to distribute 20% of total revenue to our consultant as rewards. Since launching in March, we had an uptake of 1,500 SkillsMe users and 56 judges with little marketing. However, we're still able to grow our user base by 10% every month, and we expect higher growth with more marketing. In order to grow SkillsMe, we will approach training institutes and universities, providing an opportunity to their students to fill a gap between theory and industrial requirements so they can become real coders with our platform. We have confidence because our founding team know what will work in this market. We have gone through what our customers are facing and felt the pain they are feeling. We are well equipped to tackle this problem and determined to make real coders. My name is Bernard, and on behalf of the SkillsMe team, we would like to thank you for listening. Stand with us, and let's make more coders become real coders.
Wow, thanks so much for that, Bernard. That is really an amazing endeavor, and yeah, more coders is great. There's an unending thirst for them. Tell me, how have you gone about validating some of your assumptions about how much people are willing to pay, how quickly you can grow, what markets you're going to be involved in? What are some of the early experiments that you've run in those areas?
Cool. So in terms of validation, we've approached a lot of coders and we've approached a lot of training institute as well. And a lot of them, what they do is they teach theory, but they don't teach kind of like projects and what we actually do when we go to a job and actually build codes and stuff. So they don't really teach that. And I think they quite like that. So that in terms of that, that's our market validation there. What's your second question, sorry?
Well, in terms of the different markets that you're entering, how have you validated that?
We haven't really looked into other markets. We really want to focus in New Zealand first and get into the New Zealand market before we go out. But I've been talking to a lot of people in the Australian market, and they are quite interested in that as well. But in my point of view, I think we do have to partner with someone in Australia in order to let them grow, because we don't have any experience in any other particular market around the world, because I think it's quite specialized and every market is different.
Kia ora, Bernard. Truman's got a great question for you here. Hi, Bernard. If a student has an improved solution to the real world problem shown on the platform, can they claim intellectual property?
So excuse me, my name is Zifei and I'm the CEO of the company. So excuse me is basically like a GitHub. So everything that you put on the excuse me platform is open sourced. So if you want to apply for intellectual property, then it's fine. We don't have any problem with it because it's belong to you. But you also, like, for all the coder, you have to understand this is the open source platform, which is like once you put in there, everybody can see what is you write in the code, everything, and everybody can easily copy you. So, you know, and this pretty much is like people's preference. But for excuse me, as a platform, we don't interact with any of that. You know, it's just leave to people. Yeah.
Thank you. And is this aimed to be, is SkillsMe aimed to be standalone coding education, or is it meant to complement traditional coding education?
So the vision about SkillsMe is the coding is more like a skill. It's not like a knowledge. Right now in university or in the high school stuff, other club, people treat coding as a knowledge, but you know, if it's a knowledge, then you just need to go to class and learn, and then you have everything. But as we treat SkillsMe, and in SkillsMe, we treat coding as a skill. So in SkillsMe, we're more focused on the practicing. You know, so we want people, when they learn from the class, when they learn from the outside world, when they learn from Udemy, whatever they learn, but they can practice their practical thing in SkillsMe. So this is our vision. So for this question, I think we want give out the new path for coding about related education stuff. We just want a new path. We don't really want to fall into the other thing. We want to cooperate with them and make a good success.
Cool, thank you. Yeah. And when you give them a project, how do you support them to learn how to build it?
So we have judges, what we call judges in the system. So they are top judges in New Zealand we can find, and we scrutinize every single judges. So we interview them, we look at their experiences, and they are what we call the top 5% of judges in New Zealand. So they are able to help with our on-demand in-chat system, and we're actually building new features into that as well, so make it easier. Because what we really need to say that we started in February, and that, you know, we're constantly building this platform as we go as well.
Yeah, sorry, Bernard, I just want to add something. So for this question also, we have like a resource, we have everything, which is like a GitHub, but like a learning version of the GitHub. So everything that people can add their own resource, like for example, if people saw this project question, they are super interested and they want to help other people, they can put their own resource or own components inside of this question. So when next people, when they're trying to build this thing, they can have a look about resource, for example, the components they use or the backend code other people written, and they can, based on that, learn and try to build their own thing and give their own solution. So, you know, we have on-demand chatting system support, and also we have very comprehensive resource and components from all around the world to give people that kind of resource support.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I'm just going to ask one more question because I want to squeeze this one in. Are your projects made up, or do you deal with real projects proposed by potential clients?
So we have a combination. So a lot of the project comes from our judges as well as us. We input our projects, and we also have clients, what we call companies, that put in projects because we are also adding these people into our talent pool, because one of our fundamental is that companies can hire coders from our talent pool as well. So let's say if a company is looking for a React coder that wants to build a login system, they'll create a project, and probably the best 5 people that created that project can potentially get an interview with this company. So that's another part of our business as well that we didn't really want to mention here.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, we're going to have to stop there. We just want to leave room for our last company. But thank you so much, Bernard and Terry. Really great concept. I want many, many more coders to be available for all the fascinating projects that all of the startups in the world are going to need. And you guys are an important part of the answer to that problem. So keep working on it. Thanks so much. Be one of the great startups from New Zealand in the future. So our final panelist today is Raphael Nolden from Amy, the AI math tutor. So let's go to his video. So welcome, Raphael Nolden.
Thank you.
Looks like some really difficult math questions you were asking there, and the system was solving it. Tell us how does the AI actually go and solve these problems for the students? How does that work?
How many hours do you have? Basically, we actually have a number of different AIs that are working in the background. So Amy is the AI that the students get to see, and she's basically like a human private tutor, working with the students, going step by step through the problem, giving them feedback on every mistake they make, and really importantly, sort of understanding why the student made that mistake, and then changes and fills those knowledge gaps in real time. And that's one of the key differences. And yeah, we developed Amy to meet that need of how do we give private tutoring to everyone. And it comes from my personal experience as a former lecturer of mathematical modeling, and yeah, trying to understand, well, how do we make students learn best? So Amy is our main AI that students deal with, but we actually have a number of different ones working in the background, which take mathematics and understand how it actually works, both on a sort of pedagogical, but also a fundamental level, so that Amy can use that understanding to actually do the teaching. So, yeah.
Right. So tell us about some of your customers and how are they using Amy?
Yeah, so we're a purely B2B solution. So we actually work with other companies to bring Amy to users. And one of our customers is Dave from LearnCoach. But we're actually working with a number of different customers now in New Zealand and overseas. And basically they integrate Amy into the back of their system to make their system smarter. And so that could be a textbook publisher that wants to bring their textbooks online. And so we provide them with an easy way of basically putting their content online and giving students a chance to easily practice. Or it could be situations like Dave, who has brilliant video content which teaches students how to do it, but it's a good chance for students to actually practice then and get feedback on their working as they go.
Sure, thanks, Raphael. A question from Truman, and he's asked, for international students, how does Amy cope with different ways of teaching mathematics in different countries?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We understood that the cost of building a system like this was too much for a country like New Zealand to actually better fund effectively. So we knew we had to be international. And so what we actually do is we are able to deal with different ways of teaching. So we'll have different versions of the content that'll be appropriate for different countries. So, you know, that we can deal with those localizations. But what we're learning is that there's probably 90% of the methodology is similar, and then there's those edge cases which are different, but we just have equivalent problems for those so that the students can get the local correct one. And because we work with local providers, they set up and choose to make sure the curriculum is correct for the local students.
And do you teach any subjects other than mathematics? And if so, what's the process of implementing new curriculum content?
Yeah, at this stage, we're just doing mathematics. We're building that out and making sure we have comprehensive coverage of that. We now go from primary right into tertiary. We still have a bit of work to do there to complete that, but in future, we will go into other areas as well. So physics and chemistry will probably be next, but we're also looking at a product to actually teach English. So watch the space.
And David has asked, is the material mapped to a particular curriculum, or can it be extended across multiple frameworks?
So that's a great question. So we actually build Amy to be curriculum agnostic. So we understand mathematics as a kind of pure thing in terms of teaching. And then what happens is we map that to a particular curriculum with a partner that works in that country. So if we're working in Singapore, they will take our mathematics and map it to the Singaporean curriculum, and New Zealand is mapped to the New Zealand curriculum. But it's nice and easy to do that based on the way we've kind of set it up.
And can you do that with different languages as well, or will that just muck up the AI?
No, actually part of the smarts we've built is around being able to do that in different languages. So our primary language is New Zealand English, but we actually do variations on that. So in Singapore, we use Singaporean English, which is a little bit different. And we've actually got our demo running in Chinese, German, and Indonesian as well to kind of demonstrate that. And we are currently in discussions around potentially doing this in Te Reo as well. So if we find a partner who needs another language, we just build and teach Amy that language, and she can do it.
And can you explain what levels this you cater for? Does it also go down to primary, or is it just what's the range?
Yeah, so we go right down to primary and up into some of the early polytech level tertiary at this stage. And we're continuously building and expanding that. So we initially planned to do this as a high school product, but as our AI got more sophisticated, she got confused without knowing the primary. So we had to actually go back and teach all the primary content because she understood there were things she didn't understand. So we had to kind of go through and build that all. So now it's available right across.
That's quite amazing. And it certainly does sound expensive. So how have you gone about funding it?
We've taken on quite a lot of investment from New Zealand angel investors.
Fantastic. It's probably the end. We probably need to close up there, do we, Dave? You're on mute, and that means that I must be able to ask one more question.
I've done that.
Is there any way to integrate real human tuition with the platform?
Again, that's something we'd be more than happy to discuss with a potential partner. So we're actually in conversations with a company which is a human tutoring platform, and they're interested in using this as a way of basically augmenting it so that students have that round-the-clock support, and their tutors then get deep insight about the student before they turn up to class, so they can be much more effective with the human-to-human time. So there's a really nice complement of AI plus human. It's always the most effective.
Right, well, unfortunately, that's all we have time for. And so we've seen, thank you very much, Raphael, for your description of Amy. Excellent company, excellent founder, excellent product, really doing a great job expanding globally as well. And we've also seen 5 other companies today which are doing really amazing things from New Zealand, which shows that the EdTech space in New Zealand is really alive and well and thriving. I think COVID is actually a big boost for this space, and it's really interesting to see some of the things that are happening in response to COVID. We didn't have a chance to ask that specific question to any of the participants, but it is a really interesting factor in what's going on right now. So thanks again to all of our panelists. Thank you again to all of the people who come and watch it. Thank you very much, Helen, for co-hosting today. And I just wanted to remind you that there are 3 more EdTech showcase sessions. There's one tomorrow at midday, and then Wednesday at midday again, and then there's a final one on Friday at 5 p.m. So come along to those and see all the other really interesting EdTech companies that are operating out of New Zealand. Thanks again, kia ora, and we'll see you soon.